Okay, it is officially mock draft season. Yes, I will be doing a lot of mock drafts and I will do some mock draft reactions, draft related content for the next 10 days or so until we get to the actual NFL draft. As of course, I'll just give a preview right here. On draft night, I will have be making videos of every single drafted player. A lot of them will be film studies. So for draft night, so be on the lookout for that. But ultimately, yes, let's dive into this mock draft. But first, I have to set it up. Sorry, I'm taking forever. You just want to see the picks. But first, I have to set up what you're going to watch here. So I wanted to do a what I think will happen mock draft, but quite frankly, it's just kind of impossible, right? One little thing is going to go differently early on, and it's going to create a whole butterfly effect that completely changes the draft. We just don't know. So what I'm going to call this is what I think might happen, right? I'm going to make some picks that maybe is against conventional wisdom, and I'll make some picks that is with conventional wisdom just to kind of see where things shake up, have some fun here. So yeah, this is a scenario I could see playing out on draft night. Let's just get into it. So we'll go 8 by 8, and you're going to see a big surprise at number 3, but let's start with number 1. I think we don't have to spend too long on that. Of course, we all think Cam Ward's going to the Titans. Number 2 was really interesting. I think a lot of people are mocking Abdul Carter at number 2, in part just because it makes things easy. You can have Travis Hunter be at number 3 to the Giants, and if Carter does go 2, it's easy. Hunter 3 to the Giants, and that's that. If that doesn't happen, though, and I think there is a good chance the Browns say, hey, we don't need to make things easy on the Giants. We need to get the best player. If they want Travis Hunter more, which a lot of people that I've seen would agree with me that Travis Hunter is the better player, or at the very least, the better prospect because he has the built-in failsafe of playing multiple positions. Well, then if they select Hunter, what happens at 3? And I don't think it's crazy we do see a big trade up for an edge rusher. We have seen that when the Texans traded up to get Will Anderson. They traded with the Cardinals to make something like that happen. Now, it wouldn't be quite as far, but one thing that I'm going to talk about throughout this draft is I think trades could still happen. There's been a lot of talk of trades not, just not being as much of a thing in this year's draft class because many consider it a weaker draft class. So I don't know if the Giants are getting as much value as you would usually get from a jump that far, which is why I think the Falcons would maybe be willing to pull the trigger on a trade like that. Because again, the Giants have edge rushers. Brian Burns is locked up for forever. I think the Giants still want to keep Thibodeau. I don't think they want to move off of him just yet. And while yes, you can have 3 edge rushers, you don't need 3 stud edge rushers. You just don't. It's not maximizing your value. I'm sure that's how they will view it. And they need draft picks as well. So I think that this could be a move that I could see happening. Is it with Atlanta? Is it with even Tampa Bay at 19? Is it with some other teams? People have said Carolina, but I don't know if that team needs to trade up for more defensive help right now. But nonetheless, because they need to help out Bryce Young, in my opinion. We'll get to them in a second. But it's a scenario I could see happening, so I wanted to include it in this mock because I don't see it anywhere else. So, yeah. Number 4, Will Campbell to the Patriots. 4, 5, and 6. Actually, 4, 5, 6, and 7 all kind of feel locked. I've seen all these a bunch. But yeah, I think the Patriots are bummed that the first 3 picks go the way they go. But I think they like Will Campbell enough to draft him at 4. Is it maybe a reach? Maybe. But in this draft class, I do think there is a drop-off after 3. Mason Graham to the Jaguars. Everyone's saying that. It makes sense. I think he's the next best player, and he can help them potentially be great at something with their defensive line. Ashton Genty to the Raiders. Again, everyone's kind of mocking this. It makes sense. Give them their Marshawn Lynch replacement, which Marshawn Lynch played for the Raiders and had an 1,000-yard season. Underrated year by Marshawn, but obviously he was at his best in Seattle with Pete Carroll. They might want to try and capture some of that magic with Genty, who is a great running back. And then I think the Jets would like a good right tackle, and Membu is also a really good player in general, and we're for number 7 pick. Number 8 is also where I just got to say, I straight up disagree with what a lot of people are doing. I see a lot of Jalen Walkers here. I see some, other edge rushers that often are in the mix in this situation, other defensive players. Occasionally you'll get like a Tyler Warren. Like, what are we doing? Get a receiver for Bryce Young. You have Ted McMillan, who I think is a great receiver. Not everyone loves him, and that's part of why some people don't have him going at 8. I think he's worth number 8 overall pick. I think he is great, and quite frankly, just get a receiver in general. Help out Bryce Young. I know that there are receivers around too, but look at how that's worked out for Carolina. Jonathan Mingo hasn't worked out. They were able to trade him for a 4th-round pick for some reason, but hasn't really worked out. Xavier Legette is a player for them, but is not a star. They need a star. To me, I think this just makes sense. They need to finally give Bryce Young some help here. Okay, next 8. So I did decide to go with Shedeur Sanders at 9. I don't know if that's a lock, and I could see them going in a different direction. I also could see a weird scenario where they actually have Shedeur Sanders as the quarterback they like, but not as the number 1 prospect on their board, or even like the number 2 or 3 prospect on their board. He could be at number 7, and they say, hey, if one of these guys we really like falls to us, let's just take that guy, and if not, let's go with Sanders. Again, Sanders, it depends on who you ask how people feel about him. There are people who view Sanders as a top 5 pick. There are people that view him as a potential top 1 pick. Those people exist. There are also people who say, don't even think about him in the 1st round. I think someone's going to take a chance. I buy into the Saints stuff. Derek Carr, so he has 2 years left on his deal, and so I was kind of shaking this off earlier, saying, I don't know about this whole Derek Carr, this whole Shedeur Sanders to the Saints stuff, because they have Derek Carr. They like Carr. Yes, he's had injury history, but, he's still a good player when healthy, and he's under contract for 2 years. Now that Carr's going to be hurt next year, I could see them saying, yeah, let's just go with Sanders. Carr's cap hit in 2 years is going to be $70 million. So it's a thing they have to work on. But ultimately, sometimes the way that you get out of that situation is by drafting a quarterback. Number 10, to be honest, I really struggled with number 10 with the Bears. I decided to go Jalen Walker. And to me, I'm viewing him as an edge guy primarily. Some teams are going to view him that way. Some teams are going to view him as a hybrid. I think he is primarily an edge. He's not a prospect I'm kind of crazy about, but the NFL does seem to really like him, and I just think that the Bears probably go edge here. Again, I couldn't find a great fit for Chicago. I think they might consider trading either up or down, not being at 10. I don't know if there's the right player for them there, but again, you have to find a trade partner. I just went edge. I think they'll go edge to some degree. Number 11, I actually saw this. So sometimes when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go, I would look on individual team subreddits, see what they were suggesting. And that's where I saw this suggestion. And the second I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. They could use a corner. He would fit, that kind of scheme that they like to run with the sort of the Robert Saleh, cover 3 scheme really well. I think it's just a good fit. And so, yeah, for number 11, corners are worth that in my opinion. And yeah, so I think that could make sense. Number 12 is definitely a difficult one. So there's a lot of Matthew Golden hype at number 12. Okay, maybe, but that's just not really what the Cowboys have done recently. They've really made an emphasis on helping out the trenches, and they do like these kind of developmental guys, and it's worked on the offensive line to some degree. I think getting someone like Shamar Stewart, again, is he a prospect I would draft at 12? I don't think so. I think NFL teams are going to look into it. So I don't think this is crazy. Again, it's what might happen. It's a scenario I could see happening. Will Johnson at number 13. This feels like it makes sense. The Dolphins desperately need a corner. He's a good corner, worth this pick. Sometimes the stars align that way. And kind of same thing with Tyler Warren, who, again, I think a lot of people view him as better than the 14th prospect. But the issue with tight ends is, like, a lot of teams just feel like they have their tight end. Like, the 49ers, they're not going to draft a tight end because they have George Kittle. Yes, you can play 2 tight ends, but you're only going to get so many snaps out of that, right? So, yeah. Number 15, I think Giants fans would be thrilled on draft night if they traded back to 15, still got a good tackle prospect in Kelvin Banks Jr., and got extra draft capital for the future. I think they'd be more thrilled maybe with Travis Hunter, but ultimately I think this is best case scenario if Hunter goes at number 2 for them. And then for the Cardinals, just get a good defensive player. Mikael Williams could be a good player off the edge. Play him opposite Josh Sweat. That's been a position of issues for them. Now they can hopefully be better. Next 8 here. So I do have a couple more trades. We'll get to those in a second, but first let's go in order. Number 17, I went Mike Green to the Bengals. He has the character concerns, obviously, and we don't know which teams are going to be scared off from that. But I do think the Bengals are going to sit here and say, you know what? We just want a good edge rusher, and we don't know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson. It's a position of need even with Trey Hendrickson still on the team. If he is a potential trade target, or they just have to get rid of him or whatever, or he walks in free agency soon, like, this could be a player that can help. They need defensive help. They just do. So having something like that could work. The Seahawks, again, Malachi Starks, really good safety, is someone that could, play well in that system, I think. Kind of a good fit there. Number 19 for Tampa Bay. This is one of those that if this happens, it will take 2 seconds for Jason Light to decide what to do. He could be a trade-up candidate as well, I could see, which he doesn't love to do, but just for this player, does it make sense to just make sure that he gets the right guy? It's possible if there is kind of, if it costs less to trade up than it usually does. Number 20, I decided to go Matthew Golden here. Now, again, it could be a different receiver. Deciding when a receiver is going to go is usually easier than deciding which receiver it's going to be. Again, I don't think Denver's going to feel like they have to go receiver at number 20. I think that they're going to sit here and say, like, okay, if there's not the right receiver, we'll get a good player at other positions. Sean Payton's always felt as though he can get the most out of a okay receiving core or even a poor receiving core. And I think he kind of showed that last year. I think they did get a lot out of that because they pass blocked well and because they schemed things up well. But ultimately, like in that Buffalo game, when you play against good teams, sometimes you just need a guy who can win one-on-one, and it might be worth pick 20, especially if Golden falls there. 21 for the Steelers. A lot of Jackson Dart talk here. I just don't know if I see it. Ultimately, I am kind of buying into the conspiracy theory, which I shouldn't be doing, but I'm kind of buying into it, that Aaron Rodgers wants to go to the Steelers, but does not want to go to the Steelers and then have them draft a quarterback in round 1, so is kind of just waiting until after the draft just to make sure he doesn't go to a team that drafts a quarterback. If the Steelers know this, then maybe they'll say, okay, we trust Aaron Rodgers is going to come on this team. If not, we'll have to figure something out, trade for Kirk Cousins or whatever. But let's just draft Kenneth Grant, who, again, is he going to get a ton of playing time right away? Maybe not. But, I mean, listen, Cam Hayward, awesome player. 36 years old, right? How much more time are you going to get out of these guys? They have another interior defensive lineman who's the wrong side of 30. Get Grant, have him play 300 snaps this year, and have him play more in future years. Number 22 to the Chargers. Again, a team that could use passing threats downfield, so that's why I went with Colson Loveland. Although I will also say, similar to Denver, I don't think they view this as we have to get a receiver. If the right receiver or tight end falls to them, I think they will pull the trigger. I think the Chargers, in this situation would say, okay, yeah, I think this is the best player, but I don't know if they have to do this. Okay, now let's get to 2 trades. Again, I'm kind of buying into the fact that in these 2 spots, it's not going to cost as much to move up as it would in other drafts. So for the Cleveland Browns, I could see something like this happening. Now, again, why are you necessarily trading up at this spot? Is there a team directly after you that's going to want a quarterback? Well, there has been talk of the Rams going with Jackson Dart at 26. I think you're trading up to avoid that scenario. You might consider trading up a little bit earlier, but again, who do you trade up with earlier? Maybe Denver if you want to jump Pittsburgh, but it's difficult. But ultimately, what I liked about this trade is, everyone with the Packers is trying to figure out, what do they do in this spot? Because this is usually where you get a player who's just going to be a solid starter around this draft. But the Packers don't really need that right now. They kind of are pretty good in terms of starters on their team. They could really kind of use a star. Who do you draft that could be a star? This has been one of the most difficult positions to pick. So I could see them just trading out of this pick. Maybe they trade up and get someone who they feel could be a star, or maybe they just trade back, which I could see happening with Cleveland. I could also see happening with Kansas City, who we'll talk about one pick later. But yeah, ultimately, I kind of like the idea of the Browns doing something like this, not drafting quarterback with their number 2 overall pick, getting Travis Hunter, but getting back into the first round, getting someone like Jackson Dart, who, hey, if he works out, cool. If he doesn't work out, then okay. But at least you're not spending your most important draft capital in this draft on him. And I think he's a good prospect. I think this is around when I would take him, and I think it would make sense. Then you have the Vikings, who are trading down, and this is part of why the Browns might also have to trade up to 23, because the Vikings might trade down. I could see the Vikings trading down in this situation. They just need picks, and so it makes sense. And for the Chiefs, okay, listen, trading up is something that they do like to do. They could use a tackle. I know that they drafted Moore, who might be good, but why not just go out, get a contingency plan? Maybe one of those 2 players can play guard as well. You have a situation where now you have just helping out the offensive line, which has been an issue in the past couple of Super Bowls, actually. Even against the 49ers, if they had lost that game, which they nearly did, it went to overtime, the story was going to be how their offensive line got taken apart by Chase Young and Nick Bosa. So, yeah, helping out the offensive line just makes sense to me. Final 8 here. So this is why the Chiefs have to jump up to 24. At 25, you have the Texans, who desperately would want an offensive lineman, so jumping them. The Texans can settle for Gray Zabel here, who I don't know if they feel like is massively settling here. Bit more of a projection just because he went to North Dakota State. You don't have the same level of competition as you do elsewhere, but ultimately, I think the Texans are still okay with this pick in this situation. Then 26, I really struggled with where the Rams would go here. Again, a team that doesn't need a lot. I mean, you see their needs, and some of their needs, like on a PFF or whatever, I just don't know if I agree with. I think they're a pretty complete roster right now. Could they help out in the secondary? Sure, they could use another corner, and that's maybe a scenario they would go. But what the Rams tend to do is just draft good players, and James Pierce is someone who is just a good player who is kind of falling in the draft a bit because people don't love, I guess, how he's handled himself in certain interviews and things like that, or on the sidelines and stuff like that. But ultimately, he's a player who plays football well. The Rams tend to view that as their most important quality when evaluating guys. So I could see something like this happening. Again, not their biggest position of need, but he could play a decent chunk there. And if they get him, again, why not be better at the defensive line, right? You play more than 2 guys as well. So yeah, but I could see him being a starter. Then Ravens, Donovan Ezeriku. I knew how to say this and I forgot, so I apologize. But Donovan E here to the Ravens. This is the most common mocked pick. It makes sense to me. I could definitely I could definitely see it. I think them improving the edge makes sense, and again, it feels like a good Ravens pick. For the Lions, another team that I really did struggle with. Again, do they need a safety? It kind of depends, right? Because they have Kirby Joseph, and then what do you consider Brian Branch? I still feel like they want someone else to take snaps back there, and because of that, hey, you get a good player here who can take meaningful snaps down the field, and quite frankly, I think they'll just view it as, hey, he's a player who is projected to go earlier, falls a bit to us, because there's other teams that maybe don't need a safety or would rather go somewhere else. Let's just snag him here. I definitely think that, hey, maybe they're a trade-up candidate as well to jump some of those edge rusher. The Lions would like an edge rusher, the Ravens would like an edge rusher, and they're picking one pick ahead, so maybe the Lions jump him. I don't know. I decided to go with Hampton at number 29 to the Washington football team. This is, again, one of the most difficult teams to project what they're going to do. I don't know exactly where their plan is. They don't have a ton of needs. And I kind of got to thinking, well, couldn't they do a Detroit Lions thing of when the Lions drafted Gibbs? Gibbs was projected to go kind of around this spot, ends up going at pick 12 to the Lions because the Lions just felt like, you know what, we want to be great here. The Lions didn't need a running back. The Commanders certainly don't need a running back, but if they feel like Hampton could be a superstar level player, well, why not put him in? Again, more than one running back gets snaps, right? You can still have Eckler and Robinson get their snaps as well. Again, are you now making Eckler the third string? Is he getting as many snaps? Maybe not, but Robinson will still get a good amount of carries. You'll still have a 1-2 punch. And if you feel like he is a game changer, I don't think it's crazy. Buffalo, yeah, I think they're rushing Maxwell Harrison. And again, last year, I think part of why they lost to the Chiefs was cornerback depth. Real issue, and part of that was injuries, but injuries happen. So adding another corner there makes sense. I think for the Vikings as well, they would like to help the secondary. That's how Brian Flores operates. He's from that Bill Belichick philosophy of you build from the back to the front defensively, which is the opposite of conventional wisdom. Worked out well for Belichick, has worked out well for Flores as well. He's won some Super Bowls in New England. So ultimately, is this the right corner? I don't know. He's the top one on the consensus big board. I personally would probably go Trey Amos. We'll see, but that's why I picked him. And then at 32, so I do think there has been a bit of, I feel like people act like the Eagles only draft offensive and defensive linemen when that's just not true. They actually are very likely to draft other positions. They kind of just, again, one of those teams similar to the Rams who just draft good players and draft players who they feel like will fit into their system well. And usually those guys fall for whatever reason. And so that's why I'm still having them go an interior defensive lineman and Walter Nolan. Listen, they don't need an interior defensive lineman. I know that they lost 2 important defensive linemen to their defense last year, but Milton Williams was not an every snap player. He was a good player for them. Don't get me wrong. Don't miss him. But you can just have Amoro Ojimo play more snaps, and they're okay there. But hey, you know what? Walter Nolan's a good player. Let's just draft him. We'll figure it out eventually. They kind of just do that. So if Nolan's off the board, don't be stunned if they even go like wide receiver here, get a third wide receiver. I don't think that's crazy. Or even corner here. But ultimately, Walter Nolan's just a good player, so ultimately I kind of do that, but maybe for different reasons than other people might suggest. So yeah, ultimately that is my mock draft. I'm sure you will have your disagreements. It's impossible to please everybody, but I did my best here, so hopefully I at least made an entertaining video, if not one that's going to be exactly correct. Maybe got your mind thinking on some things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. I don't know. We'll see, but yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.